Thank you so much, Alexander, for having me. And thank you, the participants, for joining this session. Now, I am aware that perhaps Butter is new to you. And for that reason, I prepared to you a short exercise to get familiar with Butter. And you can see it right now on the screen. Introduction to Butter. One thing that you can do when you use this tool is to use the reaction icon or any digit from 0 to 9. So let's give it a try. Choose any emoji, press a digit. Excellent. And a tip, if you press it fast 3 consecutive times, it becomes bigger. Excellent. Let's move on. Another thing that you can do is to use the Q button. And you may use it because you'd like to add a comment, you may have a question, or you actually like to share an idea that you have. You can also use the chat. And if you want to, you can say hello using the chat button. You may also take some personal notes, and those notes won't be seen by other people because they are private and they belong to you only. If you press the M button, you may either mute or unmute yourself quite fast. And the same goes to video. If you'd like to quickly turn on or turn off your video, you may do so by clicking the V button. Now, choose which one would you like to proceed with. And to do that, you need to stamp your decision, meaning you need to click on that icon. So for instance, I am ready and I go to the thumb up. Let's see who else is ready. Great. Let's get started. And the way, or actually the reason why I created this talk is that I noticed that quite often people have basic knowledge about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and then they go together to a retro and they need to generate their own ideas of how to tackle down or overcome the 5 dysfunctions. However, if you have no previous knowledge or you aren't aware of the existing tools, then most likely you won't know how to proceed from there. And for that reason, I think that this talk is extremely valuable because I'm going to provide you with a real-life example for each of the 5 dysfunctions. And more importantly, I'm going to share with you some concrete, practical tools that you can bring tomorrow even to your workplace. Isn't it cool? Let's get started. Now, my story is about a team that I was part of in 1995. Imagine, before the World Wide Web became as famous as it is right now. Yeah? And what happened was that I joined a group of artists, digital artists, and we generated some art. However, I was accused that I actually stole my art piece. That is plagiarism. Of course, it had nothing to do with the truth. And let me actually show you how did it look like back in 1995. So what can you see right now on the screen? is what is called ANSI art. You can see that we used some blocks and some colors. And by doing so, we actually created art. Now, you may not necessarily recognize what does it mean. And the secret is that if you actually zoom out, you may see that it looks like a rabbit. Isn't it amazing? So back in 1995, there were some special applications that you could use to generate those pieces of art. And what happened in my case, since there were such severe accusations from another team member, was that the team decided to kick me out of the team. 1 month later, they realized that the person who felt offended was actually an offender. And what do I mean by that? That person was the one who actually stole some artwork from other people. Now you may ask yourself, okay, Amir, brilliant. What does it have to do with today's topic? Overcoming 5 dysfunctions of a team. I tell you what it has to do. Since the team asked me to come back, I decided to decline their invitation because I had no trust in any of them. And lack of trust is the first dysfunction that we are going to cover. Before we do that, I just want to briefly mention where do all of these 5 dysfunctions come from. In 2002, Patrick Lencioni wrote a famous book, which is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he described in that novel what happened to a new CEO who joined an organization and what are the dysfunctions that that person noticed. And more importantly, what did she specifically do to address those dysfunctions? I'm going to share with you the tools that I used to tackle the dysfunctions. So those tools were either invented by me or I took it from somewhere else and tweaked it according to my needs in my context. Let me show you the first tool that you can use. And I tell myself, if I knew back then what I know right now. You may all be familiar with personal maps, which is a tool which comes from Management 3.0. So in the center, you have your name written down. And you may share as much as you are willing to regarding your education background, family, hobbies, values, and so on. And since we are speaking about trust and lack of it, then what we really need to look into is how can we be more vulnerable? How can we remove aside all of the masks that we wear throughout the years to protect us? And one way to do it is as follows. You may see that in the center, there is a photo of me as a child. So this is me being really, really vulnerable. It was taken in Germany, where I was born and grew up. And then you may ask yourself, okay, since you mentioned that, where did you grow up, or what do you consider that helped you to grow up? So in my case, I was born in Karlsruhe in Germany. Another thing that helped me to grow up was finishing a bachelor degree of science in business in LSE, London School of Economics and Political Science. And proactive coaching helped me a lot to grow up and develop myself as a human being. What made positive impact on me? I can mention my mother. I can mention my daughter, Eden, and I can also mention my wife. What scares me? What frightens me? So whenever I reach heights, and heights are relative, right? So I can climb up on a ladder of 3 meters and feel vertigo, or I can go up on a mountain and feel like I'm losing my balance and I don't feel the ground underneath my legs. And also shark attacks in the sea scare me a lot. Now, what mistakes are you willing to share with other people? So here you can see the mistakes that I decided to share with you also in this session. When it comes to jobs, sometimes we don't feel comfortable enough to share about what jobs sucked really hard. However, by doing a similar exercise, we can actually open up around it. To summarize, personal maps from Management 3.0 with my twist can really help you to be vulnerable, and by doing it with other people, you can actually start addressing trust. However, trust is not being built overnight. It takes some time, and you need to be conscious and intentional about it. And it's actually a repetitive exercise. What I'd like to do next is to share with you a joke, and this is actually a poster which I created by hand using some markers. And you can see the poster. What I'd like to do next is to share with you key takeaways that you can take from absence of trust. So the first one, whenever we speak about trust, we need to understand that this is the foundation that we are going to build on. In other words, if we want to tackle other dysfunctions, yet we didn't address the absence of trust, it's not going to work for us. Another one, when we speak about trust, we speak about really being humble, we speak about showing up, and for that reason, we also speak about vulnerability. And if we make out of trust a continuous exercise, then it can actually be accelerated. However, trust is not one-time exercise and this is it. We need to do it repetitively. And last but not least, we also need to maintain it over time. Are there any questions regarding trust?
There are always questions regarding trust, but for now, I think I would choose to be quiet, but let's see how it's going.
All right, thank you. Let's move on then. Fear of conflict. I remember that I prepared a poster using some markers many years ago, and it was about the 5 levels of conflict, which I read about from Lisa Atkins' book, Coaching Agile Teams. And the team was really quiet. And I shared with them the purpose, why are we here? That is to determine at what level of conflict is the team, and also decide together what are we going to do about it. And then one of the team members sighed, and I asked, well, what's going on? How can I help? And that person said, well, I really don't understand why, Amir, you make out of nothing such a big story. I said, well, what do you mean? And then another team member joined in. Yeah, we actually have no conflict at all in our team. And I repeated, you have no conflict. Yes, we have no conflict. And I was, okay, can you please allow me to continue and finish my, what I wanted to share with you about, the 5 levels and so on. And then the first person said, well, again, it doesn't make any sense. So why to continue? And then I asked, just a second, are you telling me that I make no sense? No, I didn't say you. I said the topic. I said, okay, so right now there is a disagreement. Right now there is conflict. Let's move on. So when we are speaking about conflict, we need to differentiate between good, constructive, and healthy conflict, between those conflicts which are destructive. And guess what? Usually, whenever we think about conflict, we think about them in negative terms. And we really don't feel comfortable about them. So the question is, what can we actually do? So one sign of conflict is that there is agreement that there is no conflict. So this is really, really interesting, right? And what can we actually do around it? What can we actually do if we say, you know what? We want to encourage good conflicts, yet we also don't want it to de-escalate and become Third World War. So what can we actually do together as a team to tackle conflict and to be less fearful of conflict? So one tool that I created is about conflict preferences. And let me share with you what do I mean by that. So for instance, you may capture some behaviors which you consider in your team as acceptable. And you can see some examples on the screen. However, those behaviors are not enough, because we also need to determine those behaviors which are not helpful to the team, which may be actually toxic to the teams. And you can see in the example that I provide you some specific behaviors. To tie it all up nicely, we may ask ourselves, now let's assume that people don't follow the acceptable behaviors, and they actually do show some unacceptable behaviors. What can we actually do together as a team to address those violations? And you can see that I provided you with some examples. As always, your context may be completely different than mine. Adapt it according to your needs. And you may decide actually to start from scratch and ask team members to generate their ideas about which of behaviors are accepted, which ones are not accepted, and what are we going to do together as a team if we don't follow what we agreed upon. So this is a really nice tool that you can use to address the fear of conflict. Now, I'd like also, let's do a quick exercise in butter. And in this exercise, you will see that there is a quiz, and the intention is not to test you, is actually to connect you better with the subjects. And by making some, perhaps, mistakes, you will also learn and retain the information better. You'll be given 50 seconds. There will be multiple answers, and you need to select the right one. So let's give it a try. Just stamp your choice. Okay, great. Let's move on. And let me share with you a poster which I drew. And again, you may say, okay, let's get rid of fear of conflict. And I'd like to share with you some key takeaways. One key is look into healthy debates. Because sometimes we don't feel comfortable about debates. We may say, you know what, I don't want to make the other person disturbed. I don't know what the other person will think about me. And if we have good, passionate debates, it's perfectly fine. And this is something that we should actually encourage in our teams. Another idea is never make it about the person. Make it about an issue that you have. Make it about a challenge that the team have. Never about a person. Second key. Yes, what can we do? Sometimes even good, healthy, and passionate debates may feel to us a little bit uncomfortable. Another tip or another key is have conversation around conflict norms. That is, what are the accepted behaviors, which ones are not, and if necessary, also clarify them. And last but not least, when we are speaking about debate, make it often. Good debates should be encouraged. So far, we have covered 2 dysfunctions. And I am curious whether there are some questions from the audience. Okay.
Okay, I guess they are shocked.
Shocked about what?
About discovering dysfunctions.
Yeah, which is great, huh?
Which is great, I agree.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, unless you have some questions, and by the way, feel free to unmute yourself and speak whenever you want to, I'm going to ask you a question using butter. And please bear in mind that all answers are anonymous. It will not be written who chose what. And this exercise is to connect you better with the third dysfunction. So let me put it on the screen. And right now, what you're going to do is to choose which statements are correct for embracing. No, let's do it differently. We will think about commitment. And my question to you is going to be about what are two things which are prerequisites for commitment. You'll be given 45 seconds, so you need to choose from the multiple choices. Quickly, again, select only two that are prerequisites for commitment. And you will see it on the screen right now. Last 10 seconds. You need to be quick. And the correct answers are clarity and buy-in. Let's move on. And I'm going to share with you a story about lack of commitment, which is the third dysfunction. I was working with some teams who got really, really frustrated by a chapter lead. And that chapter lead actually had some luggage, some background. Yeah? And in her case, she used to be a team lead of more than 30 people. Of course, we can argue whether it was actually a group of people or one team. Let's put it aside. And what happened was that in that organization, we actually went through Agile transformation. And there was a tough decision to split that group into 4 different teams. What happened to the former team leader was that she was no longer a team leader. She was only a chapter lead for the developers. So it was quite painful because status to that person was really, really important. And she was also part of particular team. And I was asked by that team to join them because they got really, really frustrated. And why is that? Because whenever they wanted to make a decision, that person said, no, it's not going to work for you. I have far more experience than all of you together, accumulated, and over my dead body, there's no way that I'm going to accept it. And that pattern kept repeating and repeating and repeating itself. And the team really felt that they were staying at the same place. And this is where they asked me for help. So I asked that person, I actually didn't ask, I requested that person, what if you are going to disagree, yet commit to the team's decision? And that person told me, well, Amir, there is no way that I can commit to something that I disagree with. Okay. And whenever we're speaking about commitment here, and you can see that I keep on telling the team, the team, the team, the team. So we are speaking about commitment of a team rather than commitment of an individual person. What eventually happened with that person was that after about half a year, that person decided to resign and quit that organization. Now, whenever we're speaking about commitment, and I already mentioned that we really need to have common commitment in a team, we can do something together. And one way is actually to agree together. What do we decide? So you can see here on the screen that, let me put it like this. Okay, I think now you can see better. We can agree as a team, what decisions do we make? So imagine that we meet together and we generate some of our ideas. And you can see a real life example on the screen. So you can see that there are some ideas when it comes about what can we make decisions about, what ideas do we have, and so on. And then some of those ideas were actually grouped together. What is also nice is that you can also capture a date, because guess what? You are going to revisit the team's decision. Why? Because as I already shared with you in the poll, there are two prerequisites for commitment: clarity and buy-in. What happens next is that you start writing down the team decisions. And you can see some real life nice examples of team decisions. However, they may not be enough. And for that reason, we need the third part. And this is where you're going to capture, first of all, is the decision clear by everyone? If not, we may need to clarify a specific area. Once it's clear for everyone what is the decision about, we also need to agree about it. This is the buy-in part. And once we have the two prerequisites in place for commitment, we also decide together as a team, how are we going to communicate our decisions to the rest of the organization? So first of all, we are going to capture whether it's actually necessary to share with other people outside of the organization. So you can see that over here, there are three examples of no, they shouldn't be communicated outside of the organization or to the rest of the organization. And we also make a promise, and we make it transparent so that people can see what did we agree upon together as a team. I would like to share with you a comics created by me on Procreate, and it may bring a smile to your face. And guess what? Okay, let me share with you the keys when we are speaking about commitment. So, first of all, it is about considering different perspectives, because what happens usually is that we are wired up and we think about our solutions. So whenever another person speaks about making a decision around, let's say, what kind of tool do we need for whatever, I may already have a solution. And what happens is that I no longer listen to the other person. What if we pause, we consider other people's opinions, and then as a team, select one idea? And perhaps it's not the best one. Perhaps we actually disagree with that idea. However, if that's what the team decides and it doesn't put anything into major risk or major impact if that risk happens, then we may disagree, yet still commit and support those decisions. Second key, whenever there is a decision, let's gather around it, let's support it. What happens quite often is that we decide to wait and wait and wait, and no decision is being made. Or actually waiting is decision making, perhaps not the best one that we have, or not the best option that we have. The two prerequisites we already covered for commitment. And what we really need to do is sometimes we just go with the flow, and there are some assumptions that we don't validate. My advice to you is validate those assumptions true. First, validate them whether they hold true or perhaps they are false. Okay? And whenever there are some discussions, end the sessions with clarity so that people are aware what decisions are being made. Again, I'm going to pause. We covered so far 3 dysfunctions of a team. What questions or comments you may have? Please unmute yourself and speak up.
Actually, the part you showed us with Family Guy strip or meme
Yeah.
was the greatest impression of all to me, if I speak, because it was so realistic and it was so like that. And I think that there is no better explanation of the situation than strip you showed to us, because it is an explanation itself. We should use that as a meme, I would say that.
Thank you so much. The entire script, from thinking about it, designing, drawing it, it's all mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I keep on repeating it because many people told me throughout the years that I don't say anything about it. And this is where consciously I repeat and repeat and repeat so that people know that those drawings are mine.
Yeah.
I don't use tracing. I know how to draw. I start with some basic shapes, and then the magic is being done.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let me share with you the 4th story of today. No, you know what? Before that, let's do another quick quiz on butter. And what you are going to do next, you are going to select the statements which are correct when we are speaking about embracing accountability. This time you'll be given 1 minute. Please choose the correct statement when we are speaking about embracing accountability. Right. We have 3 correct answers. Now, what happens when we speak about accountability is that it shall happen in a direct mode among other peers, among other team members. And leaders need to go first, and they need to demonstrate that, yes, they are willing to handle some tough situations, even if they don't feel comfortable. They really need to confront them. Let's move on to my story, which is associated with the subject. Now, in this story about avoidance of accountability, I was summoned by my portfolio manager to a quiet room. And portfolio manager was really, really pissed off, you could tell. He was shouting at me. And he was really, really fuming. He told me, he shouted, yeah, Amir, it is completely unacceptable. I cannot tolerate what you did. You are irresponsible. How comes that you know that there is a weekly meeting and you don't join the call? And I told him, in my defense, I actually did try to log in. I didn't manage to, so I informed my program manager. And the portfolio manager kept on shouting, yes, and that poor program manager had to stand in for you. And you should plan better. And you should also mitigate risks. So if in case there is a risk that you won't show up to a meeting, you should actually mitigate it. And this is where I really, really got annoyed. And I told him, well, I don't understand what's the issue, because the program manager, is attending the weekly meetings anyway. So what's the problem here? Again, I need to repeat what I said and so on. And eventually, I just had enough of all of those shouting. And I asked the portfolio manager, can you please repeat what you've just said from the beginning without shouting? Because I didn't understand anyway most of what you said. His face turned red, and after a few seconds back to normal, and he actually did repeat himself calmly without shouting. Is there a different way, a more respectful one from my side that I could use in that scenario? Bear with me and discover. Actually, there is. And let me show you what is it about. We are speaking about an acronym which is called COIN. And each letter stands for, the letter C stands for context. This is where you need to give some background about what's going on, and I will share with you an example shortly. O, the letter O from COIN stands for observations. This is where you're going to share what you noticed. I from COIN, the letter I stands for what is the impact on me. And the letter N from the acronym COIN stands for next steps, what I invite you to do differently. Now, let's apply the COIN feedback to my scenario with the portfolio manager. So first thing, what I could do is actually go back to the portfolio manager and shared with that person the background, why I'd like to talk to him right now. And it is about the recent incident that we had together, and it is about my inability to join the weekly call. So I provide nice context that that person can connect with. Next, I would like to share with that person, what did I observe? What did I notice? So in this case, I shared that I noticed that you raised your voice. This is something that that person cannot argue against or can. And I also noticed that you appeared to be agitated. And what made your behavior challenging for me was to follow the conversation and to be engaged in it. Okay, so I don't tell to that person, I observe that you're a mean person. No, I'm going to share what behaviors did I notice. How do we move forward from here? I'm going to share the impact that was on me. And you can see here that what happened was that it created a tense atmosphere. I felt completely uncomfortable, and I also felt disrespected because the portfolio manager raised his voice. So what do I invite that person to do differently? Let's keep it professional. Let's keep it respectful. And the way to do it is having a tone which is friendly, which is professional, even if we are facing some passionate debates, perhaps, or challenging issues. So you can see how coin can be really, really helpful here. It takes some time. It may appear that it is not natural, and we need actually to learn and use feedback in such a way that it becomes easier and more natural in time. Coin feedback is one way how to give feedback. Of course, it's not the only way. What we are going to do next, I'm going to share with you another drawing which I created on Procreate. Hopefully it will bring a smile on your face.
That a little bit more because we can see the bunnies out right now. Great.
And I'm going to zoom out. Thank you for telling me. Okay, I hope it brought a smile on your face. And whoops, let me share with you some keys that you can use. First one, and this one we've already covered, it should happen between peers. When we are speaking about a team, it should be a team exercise rather than individual exercise. Another one is that because there is a peer pressure, it can actually help to motivate team players rather than punishments. Rather than giving a carrot and using a stick, if we really want to be a healthy and functional team, we need to encourage peer pressure. That is a healthy pressure on each other, which will yield better results in our team. And as leaders, we need to walk the talk and we need to actually confront and tackle difficult issues. We've covered 4 dysfunctions of a team, and we have last one. Before I go to the last one, any questions that you may have? Right, you know the drill, you know what comes next. What comes next? Another story. And this story is about inattention to results, which is the last or the 5th dysfunction of a team. What happened in my case was that a designer created what that person said was the most elaborated and the most celebrated design in that multinational company. And he was applauded for that and appreciated and also confronted by one front-end developer who said, your design doesn't make any sense from user experience perspective. Yeah, but guess what? Everyone celebrated and so on and so forth, and I disagree with you. It's okay that you disagree with me, and it's okay that other people celebrate it. However, based on my previous experience in the gaming industry, I just don't see how from user experience perspective it makes any sense. And the designer said, well, I'm the UI UX expert here, not you. And then the marketing manager, who had a dual role, was also product owner, said, okay, great, let's bring this design into this sprint. And everybody were like, just a second, what's going on? It's an ongoing sprint and you cannot tell it to us right now. Well, I did my job. It's up to you whether you are going to do it or not. And then the back-end developer complained, said, well, it is great, but still we don't have testers to work with. What happened to the testers? Yeah, they work with other teams. So how is that related to inattention to results? Oh, yes. When we're speaking about results, we are speaking about team results rather than individual one. Before we move on to the last segment, I would like to share with you the last quiz, pop-up quiz for today to better connect you to this subject. And what will happen in the last quiz is that in the previous quiz, you selected which ones are correct. In this one, you will select the statements which are false, which are incorrect when we are speaking about focusing on results. You'll be given 50 seconds. Anonymously, you'll reply. The results will be shared without knowing who chose what. 50 seconds. Let's give it a go right now.
Amir, just remind me how to vote.
You just need to click on it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right. Now, besides staying focused, we want also the other things. So basically, everything there was should be selected. And why is that? I will share with you shortly. We reach the final section, which is inattention to results. And one thing that we can actually do about it is to be inspired from sports. So I know that in Serbia and also Croatia, you like basketball a lot. I may give as a side comment, you may like basketball in the EuroLeague, especially the results of Partizan Belgrade, who still have a chance to qualify to the playoffs. If you are a Red Star Belgrade fan, sorry about that, you just lost your chances to enter. Now, what I'd like you actually to do is to be inspired by, for instance, basketball scoreboard. And you can use it with your teams. So how can it be done? Let me share with you an example. So one thing that you can do is actually to capture a thematic goal which creates some bond and cohesiveness among the team. And it should be a single goal. It should be temporary. You should also be able to measure it qualitatively, and it should be shared with all team members. Now, once you capture a thematic goal, you shall also define the associated objectives with it. And once you completed that part of the exercise, you should also think about what are the standard operating objectives. That is the ongoing priorities of the organization, because everything that we do should be aligned with what the organization wants. And let me provide you an example. For instance, a thematic goal may be to survive by reestablishing credibility. Okay, nice. What objectives can we define here? So in our case, it may be that we need to fix some tires. We need to improve our public relations. Whenever it comes to distributor relations, we need to repair them. We need also to address morale and settle lawsuits, because otherwise we won't be able to survive. And you can also see that there are some dots. Those dots actually tell us how are we doing with those objectives. So you can see that whenever we are speaking about fixing tires or settling lawsuits, we are doing quite well. What really needs to draw our attention is to repair the distributor relations. And then when we are speaking about the operating objectives, we can see how we are doing according to revenue, expenses, production level, share markets, customer satisfaction, and again, where are we standing? Now, one good practice is to keep them visible so that everybody knows how are we doing about our thematic goal. And if we need some help, we get it. Let me share with you my last poster for today. So it's really about teamwork to save the day. Let me share with you the last keys for today's session. Whenever we are speaking about great teams, fantastic teams, they do achieve results together. So it's not about one individual who is amazing, it's rather about a team who is amazing. This is a tough one because we need to prioritize our team effort toward results rather than our individual results. And the reason that it is challenging is that we may have our own aspirations. We may be asked to do something else for another team. We may need to do something for our department. We may want to grow and go to some workshops or conferences or book clubs, you name it. And here we need to prioritize the team success over ours. It doesn't mean that our success is not important. It does mean that team success is more important than ours. And what we need to do is also, whenever we are speaking about the desired results, it is about what the team wants to accomplish together, make it public, and keep them visible throughout. Everything that you've seen today, you will get as a PDF. So if you took some screenshots, no need to, you will get absolutely everything as a PDF. Okay. Any questions that you may have? Let me end the spotlight. See all of you. What questions you have?
Well, I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Come on, Martina. Come on. The neighbors has advantage. Come on.
But it really made me think when you spoke about the lack of commitment, and it made me think how the other person is struggling, and how difficult it is to do his or her job when they do not agree with something they need to do. So I have a similar situation with a colleague, it made me think about the other viewpoint, other person viewpoint. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And ultimately, it is about disagreeing and still commit. Because what usually happens is that it's either my way or the highway.
Yes.
And what we want to achieve together to be a great team is let's select together as a team. Let's make a decision here. And even if not all of us feel comfortable with it and disagree, we will still commit for the goodness of the team. There is an asterisk. So for instance, if we are speaking about shutting down a decision, shutting down a mainframe, which runs financials in a value of $1.2 billion for a couple of hours, then no, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So we need really to balance. And from my experience, most of the times we can actually try with an idea, because the impact of it, if it goes wrong, is not huge, and it provides opportunity for us to learn out of it. Instead, many people say, why don't we self-manage? Well, because of this. Because each time that we want to do something, we go to Amir, and Amir tell us, don't do like this, do like that. Don't do like this, don't do like that. Does it make sense?
Yes. I also wanted to tell you that in the polls, the questions, I could only mark one answer. I didn't have a multiple choice. I saw the answer, but I couldn't click on it. So,
Which is great. I learned something new today as well.
Martina, there are principles in Agile which says you need to be adaptive to change. I think that a lot of changes were made, and they are related with this meetup. So I had the same obstacle as you, but only once. Then I could do the stuff. But if I may ask a question, I feel that there is space to ask a question. It is very impressive that what we actually learned through this session, and at the end of each stage, there is something related to conflicts. And I wanted to ask, do we actually see how much subject of feedback is important for everything that we actually do nowadays and every day in business? Okay, maybe I can say that like metaphorically, we need psychologists with us, but let's feedback training or let's some feedback session or learning and improving feedback skills could be psychologist in a metaphorically said in our everyday business. So when you mentioned a situation with conflict, I was like, okay, feedback is going to be the most requirable training of all, I would say like that. So how do you see that, Amir? How do you see that feedback sessions are important? And what can you say on that?
Yeah, I think that feedback is essential.
Yeah.
Because what happens, especially when we grow up, is that nobody teach us those skills. Instead, what happens is that we are being judged or criticized. We get a note, a result, yeah, and we associate ourselves with numbers. So, for example, I got 7. It's so and so. I got 4. I suck. I got 10. I'm amazing. Yet, what do those numbers actually mean? And how can I improve on that? So I believe that we are not equipped with how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. And I would like to share with you one tip, which I didn't plan for today. Yet since you asked Alexander about this, I will share it with you anyway. And I will start with the story. My former manager evaluated my performance by writing down 3 words only. Amir is rigid. And I was like, huh? What do you mean by that? So I contacted that person and I said, hey, I got the review application and so on. What do you mean? And he said, well, I have no time for it. You are a senior person. You will figure it out yourself. I said, yeah, I need some examples. I have no time for this. Sorry. So I really, really got annoyed. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Let's park it for a moment. What if, I don't know, tomorrow I find myself 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I will do an exercise. And what I did the following day was like this. I asked myself, if my manager was only 2% true, how would those 2% look like? So I found some time where I was detached of it, and I really thought about it hard for about 10 minutes. And guess what? I found some examples where my manager could perceive me as rigid person. It doesn't mean that I am, yet in some context, yeah, perhaps I may be perceived as a rigid person. So this is my invitation to you to give it a try as well. You may not like the feedback that you receive. You may say, hey, it's not meaningful, it's not helpful, it doesn't tell me what I need to change. Yet, if the other person were right for only 2%, what would that 2% look like?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I had a situation. It actually was a feedback session in a previous team, and it was very cool feedback session because we were in the office, and the office was apartment with a lot of rooms, and we were changing. We were changing the rooms, and when you enter the room, there is another colleague that you are going to speak with, and you have 5 minutes to speak and to discuss feedbacks. And somehow I collected the best feedbacks of all, and I was sad, very sad. Everybody were like distracted. Everybody were like, "Oh, I didn't expect that," and I was like, "I've got best feedback. I'm very sad. Can anyone said anything bad for me? Because I really need to hear that, you know." So there is another part of the story which says, okay, sometimes when feedback is good, you really look forward to see the worst feedback you can get, because there is always something you can improve, you can work on, you know. So yeah, I totally match with your story, but in the opposite way. What could happen? Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Guys, are there any more questions? Martina, Bilio, would you like to ask any question before we leave our guest to end this day successfully?
No, I don't have any questions. I would like to thank Amir for his time, and you, Alexander. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. It was very useful, Amir. It was very small, but very, very, very good and quality session. It is going to be very, very watched and popular on YouTube channel. I really do. I really do know that, because there were a lot of our members that wrote me a message while the session was in the air, that they are looking forward to see that on YouTube channel, and when they are going to expect that. So it's going to be tomorrow, I suppose. And in my name, Amir, I want to say thank you. It was very inspiring, and it was very, very quality done session. And it was very beautiful experience for us to change the platform we are using for our meetups. And yeah, the change is good sometimes, I would say. So on behalf of Agile Humans and in my personal name, I would like to say thank you very much for your time. It was great to hear you, and it was great to cooperate with you. So we are really looking forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if that's all for tonight's session, we are going to end this day successfully. And thank you guys for being part of this. See you next Thursday, first Thursday in a month, in April. We are going to continue this story. So Amir, you are invited, of course, to be public right now. So that's all from us. So guys, have a great day. Take a rest, and let's finish this week successfully. Eastern is close, so let's look forward to enjoy the holidays, which are going to be in a couple of weeks. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you all, and see you next time. Goodbye.